Hey guys, welcome back for another video. Today we are talking about Beyblade Fierce Battle, the movie. This is the first Beyblade movie ever released. This came out in 2002 in Japan and had a direct-to-DVD release in North America. North America, for whatever reason, decided to go for a 4:3 aspect ratio, despite Japan being in widescreen, so I'm not sure why that is. I have cropped the video to be widescreen, but if anybody wants like a project, you should just like find the Japanese version and just like smush the English audio over it, so we have like a widescreen version of this, preferably that's not in potato quality. I found this on Internet Archive, although I do own the DVD and I owned it as a kid. It's pretty cool. The DVD actually had some extra features, including the World Championship video at the time. It was one of the only ways to be able to watch that unless you had an internet connection, which in my case, I did, but I didn't have access to it. So this is before YouTube. So yeah. So the movie starts off with the Blade Breakers and crew, and Tyson is taking place in the final match of a world championship, which of course he's going to win. We also get introduced to Daichi for the first time. This is a character that initially got introduced in a Game Boy Color game, was pretty popular in Japan, later got introduced into the manga, and then got introduced again in the third season of the anime G-Revolution. This was released between V-Force, the second season, and G-Revolution, the third season. So Daichi's been introduced into the series like 4 different times with like 4 different backstories. It's kind of interesting.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for the Japanese Beyblade champion, Tyson!
So Tyson wins his match, gets crowned the champion, and this is when Daichi shows up, launches his Beyblade, and literally destroys his trophy. Not a great first impression for Daichi, and definitely lends itself to why a lot of the Western audience was not a huge fan of Daichi. Japan really likes Daichi, but a lot of Westerners are like not huge fans of Daichi, I'm not gonna lie. He's an interesting character and he grows on you over time, but when he was introduced, a lot of people did not like him. Anyway, as it turns out, Daichi has come to challenge Tyson, basically for his title. He wants to be #1 in Japan, and Tyson agrees to the match despite it not being officially sanctioned by the BBA. As they begin their match, we end up cutting off to a mysterious island. We find a professor and his students as they're exploring some old ruins which have been around for thousands of years. The kids, of course, are completely uninterested until one of them ends up finding some writings inside the cave walls.
This is an ancient language.
The inscription talks about some dark spirits that have been sealed away, and eventually they will end up being released and fighting a blue sacred spirit, but will ultimately end up failing due to a sort of third spirit entering the mix. This will cause major catastrophe and basically end the world. During Daichi's battle with Tyson, he ends up starting to summon his Bit Beast for the first time, and it breaks the seal on these ruins. This ends up causing the wall with the inscriptions to collapse, revealing a room behind it where the dark versions of the 4 sacred Bit Beasts have been sealed away. They end up breaking the seals, and these 4 sacred Bit Beasts end up taking over the kids' bodies.
The time for revenge is here. We are almost free of our prison.
We will give them a taste of the pain and loneliness we have suffered in the eternal darkness.
After this, we cut back to Tyson and Daichi has lost. He ends up challenging Tyson again, but Tyson refuses. And then we cut to the Blade Breakers, who have joined Miss Kincaid, their school teacher, on a trip to her hometown. We cut back to the Edgelords, who just so happen to be on the same island, and they're looking for a mysterious golden dragon that's going to set them free. The next day, the Blade Breakers are happily enjoying their summer vacation when out of the blue, Daichi shows up to battle Tyson yet again. Tyson blows him off, he's not interested in battling, and we end up cutting to a festival where the Blade Breakers are happily enjoying some tasty snacks, and of course Daichi shows up yet again.
Whoa, where did you come from, monkey boy?
Tyson ends up giving him the slip and hides in a cemetery, and ends up scaring Daichi so bad he passes out. Tyson, being the good guy that he is, ends up carrying him back to where the Blade Breakers are staying. The next day, Daichi is still tagging along with the Blade Breakers, and Tyson is still avoiding Daichi like the plague, and we end up finding out a little bit of the backstory about Daichi and why he wants to beat Tyson so bad. It turns out his dad had passed away a while back and left him the Strata Dragoon, and Daichi feels like it's his mission now to become the best.
This is Strata Dragoon. When you're discouraged, whenever you feel lost, Strata Dragoon will always be there for you, even if I can't.
Oh no, Dad!
It's not stated, but it's sort of implied that Tyson overhears this, and he ultimately ends up agreeing to battling Daichi. But during this battle, they end up getting interrupted by the Dark Bladers. The Dark Bladers end up knocking Tyson out of the battle, and ultimately end up trying to get Daichi to summon Strata Dragoon, which he's never done before. He ends up succeeding, but the Dark Bladers end up capturing Strata Dragoon. At this point, they Peter Pan his boat, and they fly away with Daichi. Of course, this doesn't sit well with the Blade Breakers, so they go about trying to figure out where Daichi's been taken, and Miss Kincaid ends up recognizing the crests on their suits and says it's from Demon Rock Island. So, of course, the Blade Breakers head there, where the Dark Bladers have been going through a ritual in order to release themselves utilizing Strata Dragoon. But Daichi has been possessed now. The Blade Breakers try to fight back, but Strata Dragoon ends up overwhelming them. And when Daichi summons his Bit Beast, it ends up breaking the final seal on the curse for the Dark Bladers, releasing their full power. Tyson tries to fight back, but ultimately they end up overpowering him, and they seal Dragoon away in the same cave that they were sealed in.
Oh, Daichi, what have you done?
Daichi's Strata Dragoon straight up attacks the Blade Breakers and ends up causing the cave to collapse. All of the Blade Breakers end up escaping except for Tyson, who can't bear to leave Dragoon behind.
Tyson, we've gotta go now! No, I can't leave without Dragoon, Max!
Where's Tyson? He's trapped behind a wall of rock.
Tyson ends up spending a minute talking to Dragoon, talking about all of the battles that they've had and all of the things that they've been through, and then attempts to break them out. Unfortunately, he doesn't end up succeeding and ends up giving up. At this point, Dragoon talks to him.
Don't give up, Tyson.
Their bond ends up breaking the seal, and Dragoon ends up being freed. And I guess their fighting spirit ends up changing the color of Dragoon to a red version of Dragoon V2. It definitely makes sense for the plots. Definitely has nothing to do with trying to sell you a recolor. Anyway, Tyson and Dragoon end up breaking free, but as it turns out, the Dark Bladers have been causing complete chaos and probably mass death. There's like tsunamis and stuff. It actually looks really intense. Anyway, each of the Blade Breakers ends up taking on sort of their corresponding Dark Blader. So Kai ends up taking on the dark version of Dronzer. All of the Dark Bladers have sort of a dark variant. So Dark Dragoon, Dark Dronzer, Dark Drasil, Dark Trigger, etc. Sadly, Kai wasn't actually in this movie a whole lot until the end. Apparently, the actor who had voiced Kai in Japan had some other, prior projects he was working on, so he wasn't available during the entire duration of the film, so we only got to see him for a little bit towards the end. But anyway, Kai ends up fighting, and the Dark Bladers end up trying to capture Dronzer, and Tyson shows back up with the Blade Breakers just in time to end up doing sort of a team deathmatch against the Dark Bladers, Blade Breakers versus Dark Bladers. It ends up being a pretty close battle, but unfortunately most of the Blade Breakers end up overpowered, leaving Tyson to basically fend for himself. He ends up going against Daichi and he tries to snap him out of it, but it doesn't work. At least not initially. He reminds Daichi of his father and why he's there to begin with, and eventually Daichi starts to snap out of it. Tyson ultimately ends up overpowering Daichi. Daichi passes out, but his possession is sort of lifted. The Dark Bladers express that they didn't need Daichi anyway. He served his purpose. The Dark Bladers express that a Beyblader is only a piece of a Bit Beast and doesn't really matter to the grand scale of things. Tyson, of course, disagrees with this.
Wrong, huh? The Bit Beast and the Beyblader are equal. Dragoon and I understand one another, like we were brothers. As Dragoon and I grow closer, we both grow stronger.
Tyson makes an attempt to fight off the remaining Dark Bladers, but he ends up getting overpowered as all of the Dark Bit Beasts attack him. But Daichi comes to his rescue to join the fight. Unfortunately, Daichi doesn't quite have the experience or the power, and he ends up getting knocked out of the battle. After a couple wise words from the rest of the Blade Breakers, he ends up rejoining the fight and is able to summon Strata Dragoon. At this point, he also is able to evolve his Strata Dragoon into Strata Dragoon V. With his newfound power, him and Tyson are able to fend off the Dark Bladers in some pretty interesting fashion and some pretty epic finale scenes.
Daichi!
And with that, they're able to overpower the Dark Bladers and lift the curse that was on the kids that were possessed. Afterwards, they end up resealing these dark spirits back in the cave that they were in, and as they're leaving the island, it sinks into the ocean. And in the final scene, Daichi confronts Tyson again to try to get another rematch, and of course, Tyson dodges him, and that's the end of the movie. If you guys have never seen this movie, I highly recommend checking it out, especially if you're not familiar with Plastic Gen. It's kind of an easy way to get a taste of it without committing to it like an entire 3 seasons. Anyway, like I said, this movie is on the Internet Archive if you guys want to check it out. I think it's also up on YouTube. But I'm interested to know everybody's thoughts. If you watched this as a kid, what did you think? If you have seen it, let me know what you think of it. I like it. You know, for a Beyblade movie, your expectations are pretty low, and it's a fun movie. I watch it probably once or twice a year, honestly, just sometimes with my Discord members or other members of the community, but it's a movie that I enjoy. Anyway, if you're interested in the second Beyblade movie, the Soul Blaze movie, check out Illinook's channel, where he has covered Soul Blaze movie, which is the first Metal Fight movie and the second Beyblade movie. Anyway, thanks again for watching. Hit the like for the algorithm, subscribe if you haven't already for future Beyblade content, and I will see you all in the next one.